What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Volleyball Source podcast. My name is Everett DeLorme. It's currently April 8th. It's a Thursday, and today's episode is going to be a little bit different. This one is going back into the archives, but the archives that you've definitely never seen before. This podcast is coming from what I thought was a corrupt hard drive, but since we're in lockdown here in Ontario, I decided to try to revive someone, and the first one that I tried was actually pretty easy, and this one is, I'm really excited that I'm able to post this now because it honestly crushed me before when I thought that this hard drive was corrupted, because this is my last interview that I did with Garth Pischke, the absolute legend, last year at the uSports National Championships, or what was supposed to be the uSports National Championships. So while I was kicking around in Winnipeg, I didn't have a flight out until Sunday after everything got shut down with the onset of COVID-19 that's still affecting us. I managed to get one last interview with Garth Pischke, and so yeah, I'm super stoked that I was able to save this one, and enjoy. All right, well, guys, we are here with the legend. Is that actually what they call you? Is the legend?
Well, I've been getting a lot of that lately since the impending retirement is here now, and I'm obviously very flattered and humbled by anybody that would do that, because I've been the lucky guy in this whole process. It's been a great career.
Yeah, the winningest coach in North American history, more so than Al Skates, more so than anyone else who's ever suited up. Actually, just 2 seconds. I'm just gonna make sure the audio levels are good here. That should be good. Yes. Oh, actually, one last thing before we get going here. I did bring you a present.
Oh wow, Everett, thank you. Well, he did his research too. I can see it right now. Awesome.
Well,
awesome.
It's one thing that, cool. having worked at Volleyball Canada, there is a rum culture at Volleyball Canada.
Okay.
And, that is kind of spurred on by, John Blatcher.
Yeah.
And, some of the older guys. So I wonder, is that your doing? Did you start the rum culture within Volleyball Canada?
No, but and I hate to say it, but I sort of got thrown into it or got involved in it with Manitoba, and I don't want to say anything, but it did start within the Manitoba Volleyball Officials Association. So
the officials.
I think that's probably why they bring the breathalyzer out now these days. And but no, everything's fine. There was a good core of people, and it wasn't that they drank a lot, but they did stick to their rum for sure, and that was a big part of it, and it's filtered through the whole volleyball community here.
I mean, I've definitely seen it. The officials always seem to know how to have the good times.
Yeah, they do, and especially in the old days, they were as much a part of the fun as we had when we had tournaments and stuff like that. I remember back in the Super Volley days, the officials used to coordinate some special awards, like the Golden Whistle Award and the Golden Buns Award and all kinds of crazy things like that. So it was a lot of fun.
Do you have a favorite official?
I mean, from Manitoba, there's some guys that were outstanding here. The two names that I would always think that had an impact on my career were Weezer Bridle and Eddie Taves, and Weezer not only from his officiating but from his coaching and the times that I spent with him out at Grand Beach. He had a cottage out there, and I was a friend of the families and all his kids, and hung around with some of his nephews and his kids. So it was, definitely those two names.
It's funny you bring up Grand Beach. I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but it looks to me like you actually suited up for a match this past summer with your now assistant coach, or your former assistant coach now, I guess, Adam Thompson.
Yeah.
I saw some clips out there, and it looks like you still got it.
I'm so. Adam was phenomenal, and unfortunately it wasn't like I played the whole tournament, but his partner cramped up and couldn't play in the bronze medal match, and they wanted to have a match, and I'm sure he asked a few other guys before he asked me, but
that's probably because he was intimidated to ask you. In the back of his head, he was probably like, I want to ask Garth, but I should ask these other guys first.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was absolutely great, and I play a lot in the summer. Certainly not at that level for sure, but we have a great group of probably 20 or 30 people, all over 50, that love playing all weekend, and we spend all weekend playing 5-6 hours a day yet sometimes. So it's not like we don't get our reps in, and it may be a little different than the game that most people see at the high levels, but at least we're keeping our heart pumping, and we can hit the ground without hurting ourselves, and that's still a good thing.
Is that, do you still get the same enjoyment from the game as you once did, even now when you're just kicking around on Grand Beach?
Well, I think I've really figured out how to tone it down. I think it was frustrating for a while because I think we all still have the same mindset about how we used to play and the things we used to be able to do. And I think from playing in those pickup games at Grand Beach, I finally figured out how to tone things down without hurting myself. And maybe it's an old man's game, but yeah, I've come to the realization that I just can't explode off the net and plant and try and get in real quick, or I'm going to probably have no Achilles tendon after it's over with. So I've figured out how to play that type of game, and that's made it certainly enjoyable as well, and a lot of fun playing with friends and family.
Because the beach game, from what I understand, that was kind of certainly Taylor's first experiences of volleyball. Is
yeah,
that right?
For sure. I mean, our family is volleyball, with our son Dane and our son Taylor, and we grew up at different stages where I was playing with Taylor all the time, and to try and make things even, and then that had to change, and then all of a sudden I was playing with Cindy, and then I was playing with Dane, and it just got to the point where we couldn't find anything because Dane and Taylor were just way too good.
I mean, that's typically what happens. I mean, we see
Yeah.
Dane had an incredible career here at Manitoba.
Yeah.
Then played a little bit with the national team, with the B team, and now Taylor won a national championship here with Manitoba.
Yeah.
And now is a member of the national beach team, competed for Canada at the 2015 Pan Am Games, and we were talking a little bit outside about kind of your legacy of how many of the leaders within volleyball that you have, you've kind of groomed, I guess. But are those two? Is that your most important and favorite legacy that you've left to the game?
Well, people for sure, asked me what were my favorite times in coaching, and obviously there were some great championships. There were some great teams that we had no business being in a championship, and overachieved and got there. But for sure, one of the special times for me was coaching Dane here for 5 years, and then having the opportunity to coach Taylor a little bit, certainly not as much, but to be involved in all the family games that we had, and I loved it. I've always been a family guy, and obviously Cindy played at the University of Saskatchewan and won a few championships there, and won 3 out of 3 years that she played. So we've been a pretty competitive team, and we call ourselves a team for sure.
Did any of those family matches get not nasty, but maybe a little bit heated?
I remember one match. We took our university team to Florida one year, and I remember one particular match. It was me and Taylor playing against Cindy and Dane, and just an unfortunate thing happened, and we're out there on the beach, and I hit a ball fairly hard, and I used to pride myself in not hitting it at Cindy for sure if I could help it, but things happen, and unfortunately I hit a ball pretty hard once, and it clipped the top of the tape and just jumped up above her hands and got her in the face and broke her glasses, and her nose was bleeding, and that wasn't a good scene.
I imagine it wasn't.
No.
So you might have had to take her to a nice dinner or something after that.
I tried real hard. It took a while to build up the points again, but that was a tough one, and I obviously she understood after a while. And I mean, we play hard. We don't. Nobody loses on purpose. That's just not in our blood, and sometimes that's a little tough. But it was always overall for the better, for sure, and certainly the better for Dane and Taylor. I mean, we were competitive, and some things we just couldn't get. I remember, I don't know if I should tell this story, but we had Dane enrolled in Cub Scouts, and because I did that when I was a kid, and he was in all the games and stuff, and finally after half the year, the leaders of the pack type of thing came over and said, you know, we're having a little bit of problems here with Dane. He's just so competitive. And me and Cindy just looked at him and said, well, so? So that was probably the last weekend he was a Cub Scout. We figure this isn't the right environment for him.
Did they play? I know Taylor was in gymnastics.
Yes.
Yes. Did your kids play any other sports? Is that something that you try to push them into other sports?
Oh, for sure. And there was never any, I can tell you a few stories about that. There was never anything with us pushing them into volleyball at all. We loved all sports. And Taylor grew up in rhythmic gymnastics and literally was training 21 hours a week. And boy, that was, when she competed, it was the most difficult time for me and Cindy, because 21 hours a week, she'd compete on the weekends, and she'd have 3 1-minute routines, and it was just painful to watch that. And of course, if you make one mistake, that's the end of it. So as much as we enjoyed it, and as much as it was unbelievable for her development, when she came home one day and said, Dad, Mom, all my friends are playing volleyball and basketball at school. Would you mind if I gave it a try? And of course, we're giving it the fist pump in the background, going, yes, finally. So that's what happened with her. And Dana, well, a lot easier for me with him being a boy. I helped coach him when he played hockey. I coached a little bit of soccer with him. I definitely coached him for 4 or 5 years on the basketball court when he was growing up, and of course 5 years of club volleyball as well too, and it was up to him to pick and choose where he wanted to be, and but obviously the success that they both had playing volleyball, with the extra time and contacts that they had with us, where it was definitely put them ahead of other kids' opportunities.
Mm-hmm. If we rewind just a little bit back to the days of your youth, when you were younger in high school, what attracted you to volleyball? What made it so that you chose? Because I'm assuming that as the athlete that you were, that maybe all the sports were kind of on the table for you.
Oh, it was, and in those days you played everything too, for sure, and we certainly tried to give our kids that experience. And I had a tryout with the junior hockey team in the city, and I played junior baseball, and I was recruited to play basketball at university, but I had some opportunities in volleyball that were just different, and there were a few things that went on in Manitoba, and I go back to the Eddie Taves and Weezer Bridal. They were involved in some things where we had an opportunity to go to Curacao and represent Canada as a bunch of Manitoba guys down there, and Mexico and places like that. And I went, gee, this is great. I'm having some fun with this. So when the opportunity came by to play volleyball, it was certainly something that I really loved and had some great experiences and wanted to continue.
And then first you started playing at the University of Winnipeg. Is that
yes?
Is that correct?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
And then you made your way. You were 23 years old when you started coaching here at the University of Manitoba.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of talking about it, and you said you couldn't have ever imagined coaching, even 20 years back for them back in the day, and here you are now. Was it 28 years or 38?
38
years
over a 43-year period, because I've had a couple sabbaticals and some time with the national team, obviously, and it's been a long time, and never expected it. Yes, I played my first year at the University of Winnipeg, and then went to that. Well, I had played actually the last June of my. I played with the national team, made the national team, and then we went back to Winnipeg, and then the center got moved to Montreal, so we were training there. So I went there and was away for a couple of years, and then came back to Winnipeg again and finished off my undergrad degree, and then moved to Manitoba. Interesting story. In those days, you could transfer. There was nothing going on, so I moved here to take my master's, and we had won the year before at University of Winnipeg, and then we won the next year at University of Manitoba. So it was. I don't know if anybody's ever done that in their career. They couldn't nowadays because of the transfer rules, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you were a member of Canada's first ever Olympic team. That was '76 in Montreal.
Yeah.
And you guys were coached by
Bill Neville.
Bill Neville.
Bill Neville, yeah, outstanding guy, just a fiery guy, and really worked really hard. And we had some difficulties, at first, and. He was really keen on our team, and we were training in Montreal, and unfortunately, he just felt that a bunch of the guys from out west were a little better than some of the teams from that era, and there was some problems with that, and there was a lot of good players in Quebec at the time, and that I loved playing with. So there was a few problems. We ended up having to move the center out of Quebec and brought it to Winnipeg here for a year before the Montreal Olympics. So that was interesting. But Bill was great, and he went on to help Doug Beal in the '84 Olympic team for the U.S. that won the gold medal. So that was a great feather in his cap.
How much of an eye-opening experience was that, the '76 Olympics? Just, seeing the other teams, Italy, Yugoslavia, Russia, Czech Republic. What was that experience like, seeing that level of volleyball at that early in the sport?
Well, yeah, no, I'd seen it for a couple of years, and I mean, it was difficult for me being so young. I was 20 at the Olympics. I remember when I was 18 and played in my first NORCECA championships, and I finally got subbed into the game, and wow, what is going on here? And an unfortunate incident happened at that time, people that know volleyball can understand what I'm talking about. But I got subbed into the game, and we're playing against Mexico, and I'm on the left side, and I'm supposed to watch the left side guy, and all of a sudden he goes around the middle and runs an X, and I'm just going, well, what am I supposed to do? And so Pierre Marcoux, a great volleyball player out of Quebec, was our middle blocker at the time, and he says, look, when he goes around like that, you got to jump with the middle guy. Well, okay, no, not a problem. So I'm sitting there watching, my guy goes around for the X, and well, I better jump hard for the middle guy. Well, of course, my guy came back and faked the X, and Pierre was taking off outside, and he ran right into my elbow, and he was wearing glasses, and he broke his glasses, and his face was bleeding, and he wasn't too happy with that. So I learned the hard way, but the game was just huge, and of course it continued on to Montreal, where it was, off the charts exciting for me.
Could you have imagined, being a part of the game at that era? Looking back at video from those days,
yeah,
it was a much different game back there. Could you have seen that the progression of where it is now, and were you aware of that progression, because you've been you've been right in the thick of it since then? It's not like you were a broadcaster or someone kind of watching it from the outside, but you were a part of it, building that progression throughout the years.
The neatest thing for me is with my career is volleyball was so young when I got started. The offenses were so simple, and the idea of the game, like nobody ever thought of a backcourt attack or a jump serve, spike serve, or anything like that. It was just, and that blows me away to think about that now. And I remember watching the final of the '76 Olympics, and Poland, real critical part of the game, and Poland dug the ball, and and Tomas Wojtowicz was in the back row, and it was a broken play. It wasn't part of the offense, and he went up and hit the ball from the back row, and everybody's looking around going, can you do that? You know, is that legal? They're watching the referees and waiting for a call, and yeah, nothing happened, and now today I'm thinking, well, you know, if we would have ever thought of something like that and brought it into our system, much like the Japanese did in '64 with all the quick attacks and everything, if we could have thought of something like a backcourt attack in those days, we certainly had the athletes that could do it. It would have been pretty neat, but it's great to see where the game's come. It's changed so much, and to be a part of that whole evolution and see where we are today, not only just in the athletes that we're putting on the floor, the number of athletes that are so good, the number of great programs, and the number of great coaches we have now is really exciting.
You know, fast forwarding to the '84 team, and that was a team that you joined a little bit later.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And, you know, you were kind of the wily veteran, if you will.
Yeah.
Coming in and joining. But if you look at the members of that team and the impact that they've had on volleyball today, it's outstanding. Of course, Glenn Hogue, Terry Daniluk, Alex Ketrizinski, whose boys are now, you know, in uSports.
Yeah.
I know there's
Barrett,
John Barrett.
Man, it's just the list goes on of the contribution that those guys are making now, and it was really a fun team to be a part of, because you know, Tom Jones, the names go.
Paul Graton, whose son is going to go be playing for McMaster next year.
Yeah, no, it's great to see, and those guys were so athletic. I mean, realistically, we had some great volleyball players in '76, but we had some great athletes in '84, and these were guys that could have played any sport that they wanted to. Just fortunately, they chose volleyball. But to see the impact just at this national championships with myself there and Terry there and John Barrett there, it was great to see.
It seems like, you know, it's we talk about in basketball, they talk about the Vince Carter effect, but in volleyball in Canada, I think we should definitely be talking about that '84 effect, because without that team and the success that they had, and definitely the commitment that they showed to the game, you know, I don't know if we are where we are today.
Yeah, no, I mean we talk about even the Al Coulters and the Don Saxton. We just forget about all of them, and I'm sitting there racking my brain now because I don't want to forget a name, and there's just so many guys that just kept going and have done so much for the game, and just been lucky to be a part. It was great to be a part of that. Like you said, I was kind of a last-minute addition. There were some issues there because I had played professional in the United States, and there was quite a long period there where I wasn't allowed to play amateur volleyball again because of that. But fortunately, the U.S. took the FIVB to court and said, hey, we want these guys to be able to play, and the FIVB backed down and said okay. And so that was great for me, and then Ken Maeda went out of his way to ask me of my interest to be involved, and was very, very straightforward with me about what my role would be on the team, and joining a very good team at a late time, that I was going to be a guy coming off the bench, and sure, that's great. I can play virtually every position, whatever you need, and I'm okay with that. And I ended up playing, a little left side, a little right side, a little middle, and it was all great.
Of course, things were different back then with no libero.
Yeah.
So a middle played all 6 rotations.
Yeah.
And was it? I'm curious, like, what was the approach back then? When you were out there, it was obviously a lot less specialized.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in general, like, what was the strategy, and how did you play the game?
Well, it was pretty neat for me, because certainly passing was one of my strengths, so that gave me a great opportunity to play when that was the first thing that broke down. And I remember a match we played in Germany, and literally they were serving from as far back as they possibly could, and guys just didn't understand. I said, look, guys, get out of the way. You know, I'm covering the whole court. You know, because that's
It's like the OG libero right there.
yeah. So I'm just saying that's great. I'll take that role, and we got tons of guys that can put the ball away, and great setting, and so that was fun to really have an impact in that way. So.
You brought up Ken Maeda. What was
Yeah.
his impact on not only that team but Canadian volleyball as a whole?
Well, you know, the work ethic was unbelievable, and the time that we spent working on technical things, and just finding ways to really believe in his system, and I think that was a big part of our success. Was we really believed that he knew what he was talking about and followed his you know, his lead, and that was a team like we had. He brought some special things along, certainly for playing against the Asian teams, and we had absolutely no trouble playing against any Asian team. And at the Olympics, we beat Japan 3-0 in our pool play, and beat China as well. And it was just we knew how to play those kind of teams.
Because to me, looking back, that's really when Canadian volleyball started gaining its identity.
Yeah.
And really started creating what we see today. And I think today we see that, we've got kind of a bit of a mix of styles. And I mean, so much of that has to do with Glenn Hogue being at the helm.
Unbelievable. And he was a product of that system. And I'm sure if you asked Glenn, he would say, I learned a lot from Ken, and I took a lot of his things with me along the way. And then Glenn would have added his own perspective to the game, which very meticulous, hard worker and student of the game, and just made it even better, and took that model and made it better. And what he's done with the program in his tenure is second to none, and we're legit and deserve to be one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, we really do. You mentioned playing professionally in the United States.
Yes.
And this was back, in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, for me, unbelievable experience. I mean, I got to play with some of the best players in the world, and some of the biggest names in the world, like a Will Chamberlain, and I played on a team with Ed Skorick, who was the MVP of the Montreal Olympics. So for me to play with a guy of that experience, and John Stanley, who to this day is one of the best blockers I've ever had a chance to play with or see play, and there was just tons of great players down there, and I was a young kid, and I learned a ton. My whole coaching philosophy is for players, yes, you're going to learn from the coaches you play with, but if you're an elite athlete, you're learning from the people you're playing with and the people you're playing against, and you're putting stuff into your repertoire all the time from watching that.
You got to play with Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because of course Wilt is a name that almost transcends sports.
Yeah. No, it's people certainly didn't realize how much volleyball Wilt played, and he loved playing on the beach, and he loved playing.
There's photos of him playing up at Kitts Beach in Vancouver.
Yeah. No, he was good. I mean, he had one detriment to his game. I mean, he was a big guy, and he could jump, and he could hit the ball well, but I laughed because the problem he had was setting a volleyball, because his hands were too big, and the analogy is, go and try and set a tennis ball. I mean, that's what it was like for him, and, shaking hands with him, his fingers would wrap around your hands 2 or 3 times. It was just massive. It was crazy.
Yeah. What was it like being mentioned in his book?
Oh, it was. I mean, that was at the age that I was at, to be put down on his list was phenomenal. And I remember how intimidated I was when we played in the All-Star game in El Paso, and he was on one team, I was on the other team, and here we were named co-MVPs of the tournament, and I was just, I don't know how old I was, 21, 22 or whatever, and I was just panicking because there was a TV for the MVP, and this was a big deal for me, So, and wow, when they said, what are you going to do with this, and Will just shook his head. Kid, take the TV. Like, don't worry about it. Yeah, I think I'm doing okay. And I was so uptight about it. So no, it was great. He was very intimidating. Obviously, the biggest name in the NBA, but what an experience. It was great.
Was there a lot of fans back then? Was there a lot of media surrounding the league? Obviously, it didn't survive, as we still don't have. We don't have professional volleyball here in North America.
Yeah, no.
Did it seem like, there was something on the horizon with it, or was it more of a, maybe like an XFL type of scenario?
Yeah, it was tough to get going because it was still volleyball, and there was so much other competition, to get the fans out, and it did well in 4 markets that I remember, but originally there was 8 teams, I think, in the league, and 4 that just didn't do well, and they couldn't sustain it with that limited amount of teams. So it was unfortunate, and that maybe is still a little early for its time. And would it go better now? I don't know. The market is still pretty saturated, and so well entrenched in their football and baseball and now hockey and now soccer getting involved in it. So it's hard to say if anything like that would ever fly in North America.
I think we can make it happen. Maybe not next year, but
yeah.
In the next 20-some years.
Yeah. Well, the numbers are there. There's more and more people playing. There's more and more guys playing in the U.S. now too, and certainly it's. Wow, I've seen the expansion here in Canada, and especially in the major markets like Ontario and Alberta and BC, and then the number of real quality athletes that are playing the game of volleyball now, which wasn't the case when I first started, is unbelievable.
Is that something you feel a part of? Is that something because especially for me, watching the game grow from when I was a club kid, 15 years ago to where it is now, it's grown exponentially. But you saw it. In its infancy.
We here at the University of Manitoba, we traveled a lot to all those places, and I really hope and feel that people saw our program and saw the level of play that we played at, and I really thought we set the standard for quite a number of years, and hopefully other teams tried to play like us and learn from us, and of course coaches would develop and bring their own style into it, and we've certainly seen other teams emerge as the leaders since then, and I enjoy watching their programs as well too. There's a lot of successful ones, and we're getting more and more successful ones in Ontario now, which is great to see and great for the game, and it's only going to continue.
Is there one coach that you enjoyed playing and beating the most?
No. There's coaches I enjoy playing against, for sure. I know Terry Daniluk and myself had a great rivalry, but I always had a lot of fun playing against Brenda Willis and Wally Daiba and Dave Preston and some of the longer standing coaches and Pascal, and it's been really a lot of fun for me. Al Scott back in the day, Dan Oda still at the Dalhousie. We've had a lot of exchanges with these guys, and of course everybody nowadays with Ben Joe and everybody else. Larry McKay, former player of mine, played against Tom Graham, and when he was at Saskatchewan, it was always a lot of fun, and I kind of prided myself in hoping to have a great relationship with all of them, and not carry anything off the court. And yes, it was competitive, and they were just as competitive on the court, and I loved that. I mean, that was me.
You mentioned like Larry, who was your former athlete, and at the event on Thursday night, I was looking at the poster with all of the different teams, and the thing that struck me the most was how many big names of players and now leaders within the sport here in Canada were on that. We've got, as you said, Larry McKay, Dan Lewis, Terry Gagnon. I could go on and on naming names of these big players that have come through your programs. Was that something that you tried to do, or is that just kind of a byproduct of the way you ran the program?
It's hopefully I instilled that enthusiasm in those people. It's it's really difficult for me to name names because I know I always forget somebody, and it's just because there is so many that have gone on and been successful, but I think, and I still try to say that I hope I added a little bit to what they've done, but I know for sure they've taken a lot of their own and put it into their development and into what they've done in volleyball. I mean, I see the things that Terry's done, Terry Gagnon with Alberta volleyball, and it's been fun for me to watch, and now to see John coaching at U of T, and I'm so excited for the success that he's had there, and Larry McKay is unbelievable program at Winnipeg now, and Russ Paddock, what he did at Brandon, and obviously Tom at Saskatchewan got with their program. So it's those are fun things to watch, and I've enjoyed that, and I really have enjoyed their successes too.
The list just really goes on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would literally probably take us all afternoon just to discuss all of those people. But is there anyone who was maybe your favorite or the most memorable of those people?
Yeah, I couldn't put a one person ahead of anybody else because and even in the successes in volleyball, I still maintain that I'm just as excited about those guys that left the program that have been really successful as a teacher or in the field of real estate or in finance, or the guys that have gone on. I've had a couple go on to be doctors and lawyers and accountants and all that stuff, and I still see them, and of course they were there on Thursday night, and it was fun to be a part of that, and real proud that they walked out of here with the confidence to go out and challenge and be a part of the real world, and to have, like I say, the confidence to be successful.
It was pretty incredible for me to see just how many of those players were in that room, and just get to visually see it.
Yeah.
And you look around, you see all of these big names from the sport over the past few years, and it's something that I've always known, but having an actual physical representation of that was crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think that is something that do you think that success bred that success? That people were attracted to your program, because talking to Dan Lewis and Steve Brinkman, and just noticing how many Southern Ontario guys made the trip over. Both of those guys, TJ Sanders spent a year program, and it seemed that for quite a while the best in Canada, now as the best in Canada flocked to Trinity Western, for quite a while the best in Canada flocked here to the center of the country at Manitoba.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, we had lots of guys from BC that came this way as well too, and we were successful, and kids see that and they want to be a part of it, and like I said, it's like you said, it happened in Alberta, and it's happening at Trinity now, and that's just the way it goes, and it's kind of cyclical, but recruiting, I can honestly say in the heyday was pretty darn easy.
Did you have a lot of scholarship money to deal with it, or no? I wouldn't expect so.
No, we didn't. Until a fellow former player of mine by the name of Al Eady, who was there and stepped up and donated a huge amount of money to our program from all his real estate successes, and at that time it was matched by the government, and bingo, we had full tuition for pretty much all of our athletes in a very short period of time. So that was nice, and certainly helped us continue on with what we were doing.
Now, we talked about how you spent a few years with the national team, and that was from 96 to 98, or sorry, 96 to 2000.
Yes.
Now I was talking to your therapist at the time, Johnny.
Yes.
On Thursday night.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how in the World League, which is the first time, 99 was the first time Canada was in the World League, and you guys were in a pool with Italy, Argentina, and Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
And then you look at the 2000 Olympics, and they were 3 of the top 4 teams.
Yes.
What was it like taking over the national team at that time, and kind of going through those motions of being the first team at World League and trying to
Yeah.
qualify for those 2000 Olympics?
Yeah, it was. It was great. I mean, I wasn't afraid of any challenge in those days, and we had been successful in our development. I mean, I think it was 97 was our first big success when we went to Cuba and beat the Cubes for the opportunity to go to the World Championships, and that was unheard of at the time. Beating Cuba, it was just, they were so powerful, and we had never ever been close to it, and then to do it in Cuba, where it seemed like it was going to be a rubber stamp for them, was really exciting for us and our team, and did a lot for our confidence going forward. So we just embraced the challenge and did the best we could.
Would you guys feel maybe a little uneasy after that win?
Yeah, we were going, what did we just do here? This was not supposed to happen, and what are we going to do now? I mean, do we pack it in now and call that our success of the quad, or do we keep going and push forward? And we plugged away right till the bitter end, and had a few disappointments at the end, unfortunately, to qualify for the Olympics. But we were extremely close, really, with that team.
When you look at, in January, Canada defeats Cuba in maybe the best match that I've seen Team Canada play in my involvement in the sport. But do you still hold that same kind of pride? Having been involved with the program for so long, is that still in a sense your team?
Well, it's. I mean, I'm a part of that team as an alumni. I mean, I don't really have anything else to do with it other than that, but I still feel a big part of the national team program and where we came with that team, and going from 25th to 10th in the world in a short period of time, where it was mired in the 25 to 35 range for the longest period of time. So it was really fun to be a part of that, and to get the ball rolling, hopefully, and but the successes now are with the current staff and the current athletes that we have, and all I can feel is pride of being a part of it.
Is there a favorite international moment with Team Canada, either coaching or playing?
Yeah, well, I mean, a big one for me was the Pan Am Games here in Winnipeg. I mean, it was exciting to be able to do that in front of the family and friends, and for the players. And I think at that time we had 4 or 5 former players of mine on the team, and all major contributors too. And that was a big success for us to pull off a bronze medal. It was great.
It seems to me almost in looking back and seeing video and TV clips from that time that, maybe in a sense Canadian international volleyball was a little more popular back then, or maybe it was different at the times. But it seems like you guys were playing in front of pretty full houses back then.
Yeah, and well, it's I mean, volleyball is it's never been really overshadowed by other sports in Manitoba, and we didn't have the professional basketball franchises, or I can't remember if the Jets were here at the time.
They left in '95.
Yeah, I think they were gone, and that was kind of opened the door for us to be a big draw. But it's always been a rich history of volleyball here in this province, and for as long as I've been here, a lot of the better athletes would be playing volleyball, and it wasn't or 50-50 with basketball or hockey or whatever, but we were getting great athletes playing it, and there was a lot of it. The high school system was very well developed, and a lot of great coaches, so it was big here, and we played in front of big crowds all the time, and certainly the Pan Am Games was the epitome of that.
Yeah, that must have been, as I said before, I think that's one of my first, maybe not memories, because I was 7 years old when that happened.
Wow.
But it's the first time I was cognizant of volleyball.
Yeah.
It's the first time I could remember it being mentioned on the news or or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
that must have been, what I would give to be able to go back, and I wonder if there's still video of those matches. I'm sure CBC might have that somewhere in the archives.
Oh, they have to. Yeah, for sure. They'd have some great stuff, and I'd love to see some footage of that bronze medal game and us pulling that off, and it was a fun time.
But I mean, something a little bit more for our younger viewers. But this fall at the World Cup, it seemed like a big talk was the performance of the team, but also the enthusiasm of Dan Lewis on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So what was Dan like as a younger player when he was first coming into this program?
Oh, I'll never forget his first year here, and Dan is full of energy on the court and off the court. I mean, he was just a fiery guy, and I remember his dad and his mom. His dad was extremely fiery too, and fortunately, his mom was a bit of a calming influence in the family. But the passion was unbelievable from a Dan Lewis, and I remember the first national championship that we played in '96 in Calgary, and we were not supposed to win that championship. It was Alberta's or Laval's championship to win, and we played against Calgary and in the first round and managed to squeak by them, and I don't think Dan was playing very, very well, his best at the time. He was a rookie, and he had his great games and he had his average games. And then I just remember and I shouldn't mention names like this, but I remember our semifinal match against Laval, and they had a middle blocker by the name of Francois Bilodeau, who was one of the best in the country at the time. And Dan went up and hit a ball, and Francois just absolutely roofed them, and it was oh my goodness, it's over now. How are we going to get out of this? And fortunately, you've heard the old saying, let sleeping dogs lie. Well, Francois did not let it die. He reached over, and on about the 2-inch line where the ball had gone down and hit the floor, he put a little X on the floor, and that just set Dan off, and he just took over, and I don't think he got stopped for the rest of the match, and that was the end of end of Laval in that final match, and we ended up winning that and going on to the final, and played well against Alberta and pulled it off.
That's I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
I remember seeing national team practices, and this was when Lewis was a libero.
Yeah.
And he, Hogue would put him on the left side, and he would kind of go off, and he would be nagging at Hogue, be like, "Hey, I think you can still put me on the left side. Like I think I can still go."
Oh, he's don't ever back the guy into a corner, because he's going to come out swinging. He's not going to back down from anything, and he certainly didn't, and that just continued on, and watching him, and I'm so excited to see what he's bringing back to the sport in the coaching end of it too, because he was not only was he one of the best athletes I ever had, no question about that, but very intelligent as well too, and fiery, and once he got control of his emotions, he was one of the best players around.
Now you've had a lot of success, obviously, at the university level, at the international level, but you also had a string of successes at the club level, back with the old Bison's Volleyball Club. And I remember this was when my club days, and I remember both the 2008 and 2009 finals vividly.
Okay.
Bison's against Pac-Man in 2008, and then Bison's against Mavericks in 2009.
Yeah.
And then the one you guys succeeded with was your female Bison's teams with Taylor in 2010.
Yeah.
And then a fourth final in a row in 2011.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know how many national championships we won. There was quite a few. I mean, we had Bison Volleyball Club for 25 years, and I finally just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much, and fortunately, it wasn't just me. I mean, it was a family thing, and Cindy was so heavily involved in the administration of that, and even coaching teams at the time. It got to the point where we had 12 or 14 teams, and it was just too much to do that and this at the same time. But just some great successes, and I mean, I remember that Pac-Man match vividly. What a talented team that was.
That still to this day might be one of the best 18U boys national finals we've ever seen.
It was outstanding, and we played great and gave it everything we had, but they were just physically so good and well coached and played great volleyball. It was fun. It was just really fun to be a part of that.
That was almost, I almost view that as maybe the passing of the torch from, for so long, as you said, Manitoba and, Alberta, all these other provinces really dominated provincial championships.
Yeah.
And up until that point, Ontario had only won 4 18U boys national championships all time. And since that time, I think they've won 8 or 9.
I can remember for years, playing against Ontario teams and bringing my guys into the gym, and then Ontario would warm up, whoever it was, and my guys would just be going, wow, how can we ever beat this team? I mean, these guys are bouncing balls like crazy in warm-up, and then fortunately, when we got into the game, well, their passing skills weren't great, and their setting skills weren't great, and we would end up just chipping away and beating them, but it was just a matter of time before the coaching got involved in it, because there was some unbelievable athletes over the years, and it just took that a little bit of time, and now of course it's they play outstanding volleyball, both female and male in this country.
Do you think, can you attribute some of your success to the fact that you did have maybe not control, but you had a hand in developing the players in this region, and then being a part of that development for them, and bringing them onto the Bison's program afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of my guys that went on to coach in the high school levels and the junior high levels, and hopefully they took that skill set with them too. So I think so, and the game was young, but I really felt that I was very fortunate to play at a really young level with national team programs and with and against some of the best players in the world. So I thought we had a real advantage there in my knowledge of the game, and I mean, every sport has probably had somebody that was out there and was the teacher, and other people learned from it, and I guess I was fortunate enough to be around at the very beginning. So
must have been. I'm just trying to think about all of the different stages of the game that you've seen.
Yeah.
And is that once your kids started really getting into it, was that something that you saw as a light bulb, like, hey, it's my time to pass on this knowledge, or was it more of the enthusiasm of being able to do that for your kids?
Yeah, no, I mean, my whole career, it was just coaching. I never ever thought I was going to be involved in the coaching area, but it just became an extension of my playing career and another form of competition for me. So I just did it, and the things just got passed on, and then to have the opportunity to do it with my kids, both indoor and then now on the beach, is just I'm just a lucky guy that I can keep going, and I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. And fortunately, Taylor's still going hard on the beach, and I get to be a part of that. I count my lucky stars every day that she still wants her dad around, and it's a great experience for me.
Whenever I've seen you at quite a few FIVBs now, cheering on Taylor, but do you find it hard to turn off that competitive drive, that coaching drive, or are you able just to kind of sit back and relax and watch and enjoy her playing?
I think I'm always evaluating and try not to critique too hard, but we've developed that relationship that we can talk as fun about volleyball or talk seriously about it as well too, and she's always been open-minded enough to listen and to give me that opportunity, and certainly if I saw it was a problem, I would back off for sure. That's the last thing I would ever wanted to do, was get involved of our real relationship as a dad and a daughter. So but I'm a lucky guy, like I say, that she allows me to do that, and Dane as well did the exact same thing under a very difficult situation with a team sport. You know, can you imagine coaching your son? And it's just you got to be so careful that he doesn't get special priority anyway, because the rest of the team would just rebel to that. And he was so incredibly good about that responsibility that it made it easy.
I remember watching you guys play at the 2012 National Championships at Queens, where you guys won bronze.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting one because, you know, maybe people don't remember this, but you guys almost lost your opening match to Western.
Well, Western played phenomenal against us, and of course Garrett Cott was Garrett May. Garrett Cott played for me. Garrett May was unbelievable in that match, and I think he was, I don't know what his stats were, but he had so many kills in that game, and he was the guy that we just couldn't stop, and all of a sudden he had a swing for match point, and he just overcut it into the net, and I couldn't believe it, and somehow we pulled it off, and Dane was a huge part of that. Like he was kind of the guy on our side that we just kept feeding, and everyone in the gym knew that he was going to get it and Garrett was going to get it, and it was a real battle, and we pulled that off. So it was great, and we had a good game with Laval. They beat us. We were up on them, and I remember, and I forget the guy.
Carl.
Carl went back, and boy, his serve got going, and
he was something else.
Yeah, he was, and that was it. But came back and had a great match against Queens in the bronze, and played that. And for me, and to watch the way Dane was playing, I mean, he was outstanding in those big matches for us.
I remember that was really still to this day, one of the best national championships I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, just in atmosphere. I still remember that 8 p.m. match between Queens and Alberta on the first night, and you had the entire school there. You had the marching band. It was something
great.
else.
Queens did a great job in their venue. You know, I think they had just opened it. It was a year old or whatever, but beautiful venue. And of course, with Brenda's expertise and organization, we knew it was going to be a well-run event. So it was fun to be a part of.
Was that a special moment for you, getting to win that was your last national medal, correct? With Dane?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
How special was that?
Well, it's very special to think about it. I hoped we'd get a few more after that, and we're close once for sure. And but no, just to be able to do that with Dane and at a time where it's, you know, I really, you know, I don't know what the word is, but just seeing what the Albertas and the Trinity Westerns are doing now in this day and age. I mean, this is a tough day and age to win a medal at nationals, and McMaster, all the medals that they've won. Boy, it's it's not easy nowadays to do that, and so that was a special time for me to be able to win a medal with Dane.
And then after that, I mean, most people won't remember, but actually Taylor went and played at UCSB.
Yes.
For her first season. Were you proud that she came back to come and play here at home for Manitoba after that?
Well, it was basically the thing to do, and I mean, Taylor wanted to play beach volleyball, and that's the reason why she went to Santa Barbara, and we were 100% convinced that Santa Barbara was going to have a beach volleyball program. I mean, why wouldn't they, with Kathy Gregory coaching the team, who is, you know, the icon of beach volleyball in the U.S. for forever, and it's, you know, I remember it was pretty disappointing when we got down there, and we didn't know until we were down there that their board of directors had decided that they weren't going to have a team the first year, and Kathy seemed to convince us that they would after that, and who would have thought anything different given her reputation and background, and then when we found out at the end of the term that Kathy said it's just not going to happen right now, and she was visibly distraught, and I think that's probably a reason why she's, you know, a year later decided to pack it in down there, because she couldn't get that going, and so that's when Taylor decided, well, you know, let's come back and see how beach is going to happen here in Canada, and play at the University of Manitoba, and that was around the time when she hooked up with Melissa and had great opportunity for sure to play with her, and it never would have happened in any other circumstances, because it was so incredibly difficult for anyone from the West to get involved in beach volleyball in the East, and to move to a big city like Toronto and all the problems involved in that. But of course, hooking up with Melissa has opened the door for Hernan to be involved in it, and it never would have happened without that help.
I remember that, and that was, just looking over. I remember we were in St. Petersburg, Florida, for a tournament one time when they were playing together, and just looking over and seeing you and Hernan, and Cindy was there as well, just kind of side by side, and just that realization of these two legends coaching side by side of their daughters, and what was that experience like between the four of you?
Yeah, well, it was certainly some really great memories and some fun times, and watching the two girls win a couple bronze medals at World Age Class Championships was outstanding, and the support that Taylor did get, especially from Hernan. It just never would have happened. Driving to the beach every day, and she lived at their place, and certainly us as parents never would have been comfortable with a lot of other options for our little girl to be involved in, and we knew she was well taken care of, and that gave us the comfort to let her continue on.
Did you as you said, Taylor's goal was to play beach volleyball.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could have imagined back in the day when you guys were just playing family games down on Grand Beach, that she would be playing as a professional, would represent Canada internationally, at the Pan Am Games, all of these things? Or was that the goal back then, or was it just kind of family fun?
No, it was family fun for sure, and we even had absolutely no idea of what the system was out here, and still, unfortunately to this day, there's still a lot of that going on, that Western Canada really doesn't have their finger on the pulse of what's happening there. And it's fortunately for me, I had played a little bit back in the day, and had experienced what was going on in Ontario, and had made some contacts out there, and that certainly, I think, helped in getting the ball rolling. But it's still a little bit removed, and not as easy for the people out west to get involved.
Well, now you guys have an indoor facility here in Winnipeg, and it's brand new. Do you see that as the possibility of the ability to really grow that sport here in Winnipeg? Because you mentioned the Pan Am Games. That was also the time when Conrad Leideman and Jolie Holden won gold medal at the Pan Am Games in beach volleyball.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the facility, certainly the start, and to give kids the opportunity. Obviously, we need that, and most places in Canada need that opportunity of somewhere to train year round, and that's starting to happen, starting to get the ball rolling, and I think, and part of my retirement plan would be to attempt to develop that a lot more, and with the help of the beach and the people there, and I feel it's as good as any facility in this country right now, and it was designed for beach volleyball, so it's a great venue, and hopefully we can see some results from that in 3-4 years.
Now, just jumping back to the indoor side with Taylor real quick. Taylor was a part of that 2014 Manitoba Bison's team that won a national championship.
Yes,
and ended a 6-year run of what it seemed like. Doug Reimer and his UBC Thunderbirds were slated for a 7th, and Taylor and Rachel Cockrell kind of got in front of that. What was that for you? Watching that run for them.
Oh, it was so much fun for sure, and especially the way the whole thing ended up, and the preparation going into it, because no question UBC was the favorite to win, and we were just the other guys involved in it, and a lot of things, you know, happened in that whole process that just sort of seemed to be everything was aligning, all the planets were aligning in the right way for them. You need a few breaks along the way, and they certainly got some, but when the time came, they played the best they could, and that's all you can ask of a team, and to do that, it gave them an opportunity to win it, and it was great for Taylor, and obviously a lot of her good friends like Rachel, who she played a lot of beach with as well too, or was on that team, and she's still, some of those girls are her best friends to this day. So it was a neat experience to see that.
Now you're retiring, and it's been a long time, but I'm guessing that you're not going to be able to get away from volleyball in one way or another. You're still going to be involved. Have you thought about that at all? The ways that you'd like to stay involved with the game, whether it's at this level here with the Bisons or in other ways throughout the community?
Yeah, no, there's never been any thought of me going, gee, I got to get away from this. I've done this for so long. No, I mean, I still love it. I still love going in the gym and coaching my players, and I'm very happy of the way we played this year, from given the talent that we had, and there's certainly other teams out there with more talent, but I think we played as well as we could, and I'm happy about that. And I mean, there's other parts of the game that I think my desire has, other parts of the job that I think my desire has dwindled a little bit.
Like renting cars.
Like renting cars and hotel accommodations and going to a lot of the recruiting that's such a big part of the game right now. It's just it's difficult to do. So.
Is that, now that you are going to have that time, do you see yourself having a bigger impact on maybe the administrative side? Or maybe, whether it's the beach side, whether it's with Volleyball Manitoba or elsewhere?
I'd love to get involved in that, with a little more getting back involved with Volleyball Manitoba, because, I'm certainly give them a lot of credit, and I mean, people don't remember that's how I started. I was a 50% University of Manitoba, 50% technical director of Volleyball Manitoba. So that was the beginning, my first full-time job. So then after a year, I kind of said, well, this doesn't work out so good, because you guys want me 75% of the time, and you want me 75% of the time, and I'm not going to do 1.5 jobs here. So then I approached the university and said, hey, can you do something to help me out? And they said, sure, we'll find you. We'll make it 100% here. So that was all good, and but I'd love to do that. They've been so incredibly supportive over the years of anything I've ever done, and anything my kids have done. It's been fantastic. I'm definitely indebted to them, and Volleyball Canada too.
What's the thing you're going to miss most about working within these walls and working with Bison's volleyball?
What will I miss? Just the relationships with the players. I mean, you saw the rapport that I had with them on the other night, and just seeing them develop and seeing them grow up as young men, and hopefully having an impact on their lives. And I really value those relationships, and I think that's going to dwindle now, because I'm not going to have that opportunity as much. But there's still plenty of people out there that I can still talk with and talk about old times and watch them grow. And it doesn't mean I'm going to walk away from watching what's going on here. I'm certainly going to have a vested interest in the guys that are still here. And like I said, it's a fairly young team, and they'll have a few years left in them. So I certainly want to keep watching them and watching them progress as young men.
We've talked about the progression of volleyball, not only here in Canada, here in Manitoba, but internationally. And is, now that you're in the process of kind of passing that torch, are you going to be able to kind of like look back and see the impact that you've had? Or is it something that, you rather not look at and rather just kind of stay in the present?
No, I definitely want to look back at it and see where it's come. I'm certainly going to keep an eye on where it goes in the future. But just having the opportunity again to reconnect with some guys, and the comments that the gracious comments that have come my way about how I've impacted their lives has been great, and I feel very proud of that it's gone in that direction, and nothing but excitement to see where the sport keeps going, because it's still going, especially what I've seen on the men's side, and I'm not overly familiar with what's going on the women's side, but it's at a peak right now, and I see the players that are playing here in Canada, and it's going to continue.
I'm sure you have kind of opinions or ideas of ways to continue growing the sport. Is there anything that you share with us of things that you think that we could maybe be doing better, or ideas that we could be pushing forward?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I would want to get into that, or but I'm very, very comfortable with what I see right now. I think the state of our development system is definitely gone in the right direction, from opening it up to at the club level to all these teams, to give them the opportunity. I would love to see uSport open up our national championships a little bit, and get more people and more teams involved in that, because there are more good teams now than there ever has been, and why not do that? Because the whole national championship thing is such a great opportunity for players, and it just gets them more excited about being back at it and having that chance to win it at the end, and I'd love to see that happen. I think things are phenomenal with what's going on with our national teams. If you're ever prepared to get the pro league started in this country, that would be great. If that would be viable, but would be great to see. I think that could be the next stage, to see guys staying at home a little more.
Well, just on that, like my thought of it, in looking at kind of the pro scenario, and I think here in North America, our view of professional sports is much different than we have in Europe. Mm-hmm. And in Europe, it's based off of almost these community clubs. And you look at these legendary clubs across any sport, and oftentimes they stem from the community clubs that hold them within that community, as opposed to like the Winnipeg Jets. They don't have a feeder system of the best players in Winnipeg coming up and being signed that way. They gain everyone through the ranks. Yeah. Do you ever think that system would work, like a European model, where say there's a professional Winnipeg volleyball club, but instead of signing people through a draft through uSports, it's really they're signing the kids who are coming up through their club, and they're able to compete at that level?
Well, there could, but I think it would have to be a lot less clubs going down, and I think the model might be for us to, because of the nature of North America, is having something both on the indoor level and on the beach level, of where Canada and the U.S. work together, and maybe there's only 1 or 2 or 3 hubs in Canada and 4 or 5 in the U.S. to put together the top clubs and maybe professional teams, or expanding the AVP to Canada for a couple events, and keeping those, and that would certainly help for the development here, and for a higher level, because we've got obviously some great beach players as well as indoor players that everybody can learn from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've thought about that, about how we could, instead of having just a straight Canada and America league, we could almost have 3 separate leagues. You'd have a West Coast league, a Midwest league, and then an East Coast league. Mm-hmm. Just kind of being able to work with those different population centers, because we know how strong volleyball here is here in Manitoba. Definitely Saskatchewan. They've got some strong players as well down. Illinois and all of that far, and they're how strong they are.
Or similar to, as you say, to the system in Europe, where there's an elite league of 5 or 6 teams in a Tier 2 league, and that way you're developing more and more players, and even a Tier 3 league or whatever could be implemented as well too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, for me, the next step is really looking at a way of developing a professional ranks, but then also more of a house league ranks.
Yeah.
Trying to get kids who come in at a young age, not through the school system, but, just at a young age, and they play maybe a different game, and the goal is really just to foster the love of the game, as opposed to just throwing them right into club volleyball and right into everything like that. I'd love to see, maybe some of the provincial associations and, Volleyball Canada get behind trying to develop a way to get kids into volleyball. Maybe I was playing soccer when I was 4 years old. I was playing hockey when I was 5. Maybe that's a little bit young for volleyball, but maybe, 6, 7, 8-year-olds can start playing a different way and just seeing the game at that level, because, for me, it's just that's how you're going to be able to get more interest and more athletes into the game.
I think that's important. I think, very important for men's volleyball for sure is to get the guys a little bit earlier, because everything's so well entrenched with their baseball opportunities and their hockey opportunities and stuff like that. I think women's volleyball is unbelievable. Both here and in the United States, and there's just not enough opportunities for them, and the more and more opportunities for them, you're going to see more and more girls playing this game. It's just an outstanding game for the females and for the males too, but they just don't get a chance to experience it early enough, so they're already entrenched in other things, unfortunately.
I mean, we're starting to see maybe not the exodus, but we're starting to see people being very wary of football, for example, due to the head injuries. Yeah. Do you think that volleyball has, the way I look at it, the way that, there is that net to separate them, and it's in a way a safer game, there's no contact, but the way the game has evolved and how much of a chess match it is and how quickly you have to think, to me that points kind of in the direction that volleyball, is only going to grow further from this point.
It has to nowadays, and it's I love the other sports out there, but I would be hesitant to have my kids play some of the sports where there's a lot more injuries involved in it, and I think we don't even know how unfortunate some of these things are and what the after effects are of some of these injuries. So personally, I would be looking for some other options, and there's no question that volleyball is a phenomenal sport that we don't have very, very few injuries involved in the game. Concussions are really at a low point, and even you get the odd ankle injury here or there, or maybe a little shoulder problem from overuse, but for the most part, it's you're not running into people and breaking legs and limbs and all that stuff. So I like it for that aspect of it. I like it for the team concept. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's life, and learning how to play any team sport is phenomenal, and learning how to deal with other individuals. And I think it's been a real benefit to anybody I've seen involved in any level of program. So that's great, and I think that's a real plus for it.
All right, Garth. Well, I honestly can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me today. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done to the game, for the game, over the course of the past 40 plus years.
Yeah, there was some playing before that.
Yeah.
So it's been great, Everett. I'm the lucky guy in this whole thing, and there hasn't been a day in my job that I've not wanted to come to work, and I don't remember. I may have missed one practice in my whole career. I don't remember. I must have been pretty darn sick not to be here. So it's been great. I've been lucky. I've had a lot of great people help me out over the years and help me molding my philosophy, and I can't say it. I still love it, and I don't expect to disappear too soon.
Well, I for one certainly hope that you don't, and I know that sentiment is kind of shared from people across the country. I know that it was definitely shared amongst the 150 plus people that were there on Thursday night. That was, as I said, it was astonishing for me to kind of see how many people were there and how many people were you had impacted on such a deep level. And, it was such a moment when, it was announced that the championship had been canceled.
Yeah.
And to see the devastation on everyone's face, and to see that, that realization that, it wasn't going to happen, and they weren't going to have this opportunity to celebrate you. But then also on the flip side, just to start hearing those stories.
Yeah.
And that was really, and then, seeing how everyone reacted to you and how they personally wanted to go see you and talk to you and pay their respects.
It was great for me, but those guys are athletes first, and they understood. Most of them had been to a national championship, and they knew what that was all about, and they were devastated, not just for my players, but for the rest of the teams, and not getting that opportunity, and the seniors and those that are done their academic careers that probably won't be back, and knowing that they wouldn't have a chance, and that hit home with those guys, and going, wow, we're lucky that never happened to us. So.
Yeah, it's. I mean, for sure, will be a national championships that we'll never forget, because it's the one that that never happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, there'll be a blank on the championship trophy, and that's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, but that's life, and I guess the one good part, I guess, even though it's not good, is that we're not the only ones. It's not like the NHL where they didn't have a year because of a lockout or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's because of something bigger than sport.
Yeah, for sure, and it's we'll look back on it, and hopefully it's something that all these individuals learn from, and make them better people, and learn how to deal with real life once volleyball's over with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Garth, thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you very much for your impact over the years. I think I've said it before, but if we made a Mount Rushmore of Canadian volleyball, you would definitely be front and center.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I wish you the best of luck in the next stage. I know I'm not done seeing you around.
No, for sure not. No, there's too much enjoyment in this sport and in this country, in both university and Volleyball Canada and everything. It's great to see where we are, and it's exciting to try and predict where we're going to be in 5-10 years from now, and I hope I'm still around watching it.
So do I. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.